I'm here with the amazing Kreskin. He is a mentalist. He's been in the entertainment industry longer than I've been alive. I'm so grateful, to have you. You recently celebrated your 89th birthday.
Sure.
Happy birthday.
And the good news is, folks, that I'm still sober. Not that I drink. I just start rumors. I love, I love wanting to kid myself. That's Ryan, as I've traveled the world and I've done thousands upon thousands of shows around the world. The sad thing that's taking place is that we're losing in our culture our sense of humor. And
Right.
I'm sure you're aware of this. Young
100%.
people are very uncomfortable, a lot of them, about kidding each other because now it's apologies and everything else. Well, it was nothing to be able to laugh at what people do and what have you. And I just never have stopped laughing. I'm still around, and I don't drink that heavily. Not that I ever did drink, but I start the rumors.
And you're someone who has been around, a lot of great comedians. One of my favorite comedians, Johnny Carson, you were on his show, 25 times, probably maybe even more than that. But can you talk about being on the Johnny Carson show? And do you feel could a show like that have operated? I mean, it wasn't that controversial, but I feel now everyone is so looked at,
Yes.
it just seems like people want to be targeted for anything that they say, where it's you
Uh,
can't just anything you say that makes the wrong group of people mad, could really affect your career in the entertainment industry where you're not working.
I did 88 Carson shows, which is kind of a record, and we
You
had a
did
very great
88?
88, yeah.
Wow.
And experiences I had. Uh, um, there was one Deb, my secretary. I thought it was a notice about something, but on one show,
Yes,
he
Kreskin.
Deb, who was the character that Carson created the character about after?
Karnak.
Yeah. This is a story a lot of people don't know about. In fact, when I've told it the past few weeks, they say, "Oh my God, we never knew this." Uh, I had done so many Carson shows and experiences and what have you. And one show, Ryan, I walked on. I had something in my hand, and I wasn't being silly or stupid, but I tripped and fell forward. It landed face down on. I didn't hit my head or anything, but I'm holding the item, and the audience kind of chuckled, and Carson said some kind of crazy remark, and instead of getting up, I lay there with this item in my hand. I don't even remember what it was. It was like I was going to show some, and he went on, and 3 or 4, 5, 6 minutes, I decided not to get up, and finally that segment ended, and he had to go to a commercial break. And when he went to the break, he came over to me and says, "Kreskin, thank you very, very much. Your staying there gave me more opportunity to ad lib and keep kidding and so forth." And interestingly enough, Deb, in other words, I mentioned, interestingly enough, a few weeks later, he created a character. What was the character you said?
Karnak.
Oh, yeah, wait till you hear this. A few weeks later, I'm not on the show, but he has a guest on the program, and sometimes I did routines with them and what have you. And he walks on, and this lady is sitting at this table. And he comes to the table and bumps into it. And the audience chuckles and what have you. That incident was based on what happened on the show when I fell. And he created, based on me, Karnak, which was a character on his show for years, a comedy character. But whenever he came on, whatever the thing was, he would bump into the table as if he was slightly intoxicated. So I guess that was the signal for me to take up drinking, but I never did. I could tell you endless stories through the years, with the scores and scores of shows with Mike Douglas, Steve Allen, what have you. But they were, and Carson had his hand. Unfortunately, Ryan, the Tonight shows are not getting the ratings they once did. Nowhere
Right.
near. They've lost millions of viewers. But Carson had a rule on his show that politics was not to enter the scenario because in just from his viewpoint, that's his own policy. He never made this public. He didn't want to turn off part of the audience because of the politics. But a lot of the shows now, and I'm not saying they shouldn't, but a lot of them are built completely around political situations, and it's a whole different ball game. But I had many great experiences, and incidentally, folks, I want the viewers to hear this because I haven't met Ryan in person, but if I happen to meet him in person, I dare not read his thoughts. I'm only joking, Ron.
No, no, it's absolutely correct.
No,
Kreskin,
yeah.
my thoughts should never be read. Um, but like, Kreskin, like you make some good points. And like, now with the age of social media and you have like, the late night hosts, that like Colbert, Jimmy Fallon, they're making like,
They're
15
very good. They do a
million
good
dollars
job.
a year. But like these shows, it seems like, people look at content differently. Like a lot of people are focused on social media, like where it's like they want to see things on their phone. They don't want to watch television.
Yeah.
Like, how do you feel like, back in the day, like, uh television, because like being on Carson, did it have like, an effect? Obviously, you've been able to have a career in entertainment and be successful over the years. How significant was it appearing on Carson back then? Like, could you compare it to like now, what it would be like?
Well, in the sense that, and if I start to sneeze, I have no cold. It's just that once in a while I've been, excuse me, folks. Uh, I, we didn't worry about subject matter we were talking about. He often knew the topic or some of the areas we were going. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I don't have a cold. You know what's interesting, Brian, and it's been going around. I've had this now for maybe a half a year or what have you.
Okay.
Every morning when I get up, I start sneezing occasionally, and I guess it's just a congestion inside me because we're in heated rooms and what have you. So forgive me if I sneeze once in a while. It is not a commentary on Ryan's interview, nor his topics, nor how he feels about things. I'm not criticizing in any way, shape, or form. But no, we weren't that conscious. If he had any topics, he liked to know. He did like to know
Right.
the nature of the topics we were talking about because that way he could have ad libs and thoughts about how to respond and so forth. But very, it's almost unheard of that he ever told me not to discuss this topic or what have you because excuse me, we had a respect for our guests
Okay.
and and they became part of the family, if you know what I mean. So it was interesting, and many a time he came up with a remark, well, the Karnak thing and behaving like someone who'd been drinking to build that came as a result of not ad libbing, but talk ad libbing while I was lying there on the floor. But he took advantage of it, and that's the skill of a natural born comedian. He could take advantage of things and have a ball doing it. I admire him. I miss him many ways because he had a great way of looking at things, and yet not. I don't think he left anybody with any ill feeling. But as I said earlier, Ryan, in those days, you could say the stupidest thing about different people and what have you, and nobody held that as a crucifix against you or a vote against you or what have you. Understand what I mean?
Yeah.
It just didn't happen in those days. It wasn't part of the picture because comedians, look at the great comedians from Bob Hope to Steve Allen to all of them. I mean, they all were kidding people, right? And we expected them to do it, but nobody, Ryan, ever that I could imagine when we were suddenly off the air were worried, gee, he said so and so about this person or about this person. It was just part of the game. You don't see that anymore.
uh you're embedded in the legacy of Americana. I feel like, you're referenced so much
That's
in
right.
pop culture, films like, The Great Buck Howard, which, are based on you.
Which was
Steve
based on
McQueen,
me. Yeah.
One of the most influential horror writers, he wrote a book, The Institute, and this book follows 12-year-old genius Luke Ellis. When his parents are murdered, he's kidnapped by intruders and awakens in the Institute. I read that book. Really
Did you read
excellent
that
read,
book?
but it has a character named the Little Kreskin. What's it like, being acknowledged by like, pop culture, become you know, a, uh, bigger than yourself, like you're a legend.
Yeah, yeah. That's an awesome situation. People would be kidding me wherever I walked. They call me Buck Howard or whatever the thing was. And I just felt very pleased and confident that fortunately they didn't call me Jack the Ripper or anything else like that. Right. Or you would have been talking to me now and trying to clear the air that I never did threaten or murder anybody. But it was a and you know what? The other thing, Ryan, is, and I know that you do this all the time because you cover the industry. They were well aware of the different topics that were going on that were being talked about on broadcasting or in the gossip columns or what have you. That way, they kept on top of things, and people looked in because they wondered. They knew sooner or later they were going to say something refreshing about so and so because he or she were just in the news. But it's a different situation today. Today, an awful lot of that is being written by political writers.
Right. I've spoken to like some of those writers before, and I think like, what do you feel like, because we live in such polarizing times, uh, I think like, we're at a very pivotal point in our country's history, with this election. It certainly seems like, it'll be like a historical election, whoever wins. Do you have any thoughts about that?
Well, I've been asked more and more. Through the years, I've predicted elections upon elections and rather successfully, but this year I've avoided such because the problem is if I make a prediction of what have you, then it's going to be tossed out of, distorted completely and held against me and what have you. And that a prediction of an election is not meant to be, excuse me, how I feel about the election. It's how I feel what's going to happen in the election. Excuse me, I for five years ago, I started to worry. I started on, and I'm being interviewed more and more about this of late. I started to worry about our culture and the future of this country. And now, in recent months, it's become more serious because the truth of the matter is, and this is not deciding on whether a person's a political figure that's a Democrat or Republican or what have you. And I have nothing against politicians. I just wish that most of them had been in cemeteries. But that's a refreshing look at the situation the way it is right now. But I have a fear that first of all, if we study for God's sakes on earth, and folks, all of you listening into Ryan and my commentary, think about this, folks. Who would have ever dreamt that in the history of the United States, and I did not dream this 10 years ago, 15 years ago, and as of a few days ago, I'm 89 years old. I'm still working very, very successfully. I do a weekly column, what's on my mind, in which I comment on various issues and what have you. But who would have ever dreamt that we would be inundating into the United States, not a dozen, not 50, not 70, but hundreds of thousands of people that are not part of this country. It is, by the way, and if we study the past, it's one of the most successful ways of destroying a unique nation. And people are asking me, Kreskin, do you think that the United States, how do you think that they will do? Because was it 8 million now that we have entered? And we have kids that are dying because of drugs and all the other company. And we have also, should not overlook the fact that the greatest enemy we have right now is really Red China. That I said 4 years ago, 5 years ago. I mean, they're in behind the scenes in many, many television programs, many broadcasts. The news has been altered so constantly, and I would not have dreamt that we would have ever thought of this happening, because I would hope that young people coming out of college would say, hey, I want the news to be honest. Let's just say it the way the hell it is and go on with it. But that's one
Uh,
of the ways.
that is a really crazy thing because there's so much misinformation. And like a lot of times, like, I've seen like, major media outlets get the story, like, where it was wrong, it was later proven and
You
stuff. And
said it all. You just
this
said it
is
all right now,
this
Ryan.
is inaccurate, this is misinformation, and no one seems to like
Incredible.
they put these sources up like they're reputable sources. Like, what are the reputable sources nowadays, like, in media where like people just like, put out clickbait and want to like, be first as opposed to being like truthful and accurate.
One of the ways of destroying the United States of America is to fill it with outsiders. Just fill it, and fill. Of course, we have. I guess now it's close to 8 million. And my only fear, and I'm not saying who or where or what party is going to win or what have you. My only fear is that this may not be straightened out before the next election. And my fear is, because I love this country, I have great pride in this country. My fear, Ryan, is that if we don't do something soon, it could be too late. And I say this as a proud American citizen, not a Republican, not a Democrat, not pro this party, not that one, but the future of the United States, because we are just destroying this country. And to allow it to happen. Now, the bottom line is Red China is one of the keys, because they have
Right.
poured millions of dollars, I'm sure you're aware of this, into universities. Universities have
Right.
been,
Like Peter Schweitzer in his book Red Handed, he talks
yes,
about like, how like they're pouring their research, like,
and they're
institutions.
altering the research.
Yeah.
That this is unbelievable. And my degree's in psychology, and I've performed at I mean, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of times through, but people tell me that, this story just came in and we don't even know if it's true or not, but it's been sent in as a story. This is not the way that this country was built, and we should be proud to be American citizens, proud. And I really think we need to make some changes. And I'm not saying is who's leading the party and what have you, unless they know how to make whipped cream with ice cream and so forth, because I love that. But anyway,
But Kreskin,
that's.
we're running out of time and stuff. We're gonna cut
I'm
off.
sorry. I could talk to you for hours. I
But
really.
I love you. I love you, Amazing Kreskin. Like, thank you so much for taking the time. You've been on my show. Like, this is the third time.
Let's do
Hopefully,
it
like,
again.
I could get you on there 78 more times at least,
Uh,
get up there
and,
with Johnny Carson. But
and I'll come back, and I promise, folks, if I get in person with him, I got to avoid reading his thoughts. No, I'll have fun with you, because you
yeah,
are very
it's some good
refreshing.
stuff in there though. Like, man, some nice
And
ladies.
what's great about you, and I could tell this to the viewers, you listen and hear what people say. We're not hearing what